Good afternoon, and I would be remiss in what I'm saying other than turn it on and press like and see how you're reacting to this day. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad. I can't say enough about beautiful Texas. Today, Texas is really, really beautiful in all of her glory. I ran into two of the children this morning on their way to school. Hi, Gigi. And whenever I see these children and they say, hi, Gigi, it makes my day. And I have begun for the first time again to understand how my mother reacted or felt about being around children. I understand how teachers feel about going to school and being with children. And I don't know if I said this before or not, but one of the things I always thought when I first started teaching, because I was a math science teacher, I thought I was the cat's meow. And I approached it because I was preparing youngsters for pre-med or some science that had to do with curing people. And it happened that I had to, during a hiatus, do something to keep my license secure. And I had to teach X number of days a year. So I thought, well, I'm very close to a school here, and I understood right away that there was a teacher who was going on leave, and a science teacher. So I thought this was really a break made in heaven. And when I got there, and the principal took me to the class that I was going to have. And I was only going to teach maybe a couple days a week. And when I saw these were little kids, it was second grade. I thought, I can do this. Anybody could do this. Little kids. And I didn't think I could tell them anything, but I figured I could do it. But when the little kids came in, and as little kids do, good morning, how are you this morning? And the first thing a couple of them did, they walked up and touched me. And okay, that was all right. But then they would touch my face and touching my hair and all this. And I thought, now this isn't gonna work. I can see right now that this is not too cool. And the principal came in, and just as she came in, I realized that I had really bitten off more than I could you because I had absolutely no training teaching little children. Well, first of all, you've got to know how to talk to little kids. You don't talk to them the very same way that you talk to older children. And my expectations of them were basically the same as I had of older children. But there is an enormous difference between a 6 and 7-year-old and a 13-year-old. And needless to say, I did the first thing that I always do, which is tears started rolling down my cheeks. And I'm thinking, Lord, what am I going to do? And as the day, we got it together a little bit. But it was my first time realizing that I was not the cat's pajamas. I was not the cat's slippers. I was not the cat's anything except maybe, think about it. But I realized that one of the things that you should not do is sit back and think that because you're a science teacher, a math teacher, that you're all that. And one of the things I learned that first 2 or 3 days when I taught elementary school, early elementary school, was that those are the real teachers in the world. When they come to you in middle school, high school, college even, they have learned basic concepts and they're being fine-tuned as they go along. And just, I think, I know it hasn't been more than 2 weeks ago, there was a big brouhaha between, I don't know if it was on Facebook or something where an argument came up about people who had been to college versus those who had not been to college and were doing something. And now this, I did not get involved in it all because I got such rigid feelings about it. My approach would have been the way I approached things when I was with my brothers. And one of the things is that you may go to college, but just because you go to college doesn't mean that you're all that in a bag of chips. Because the first thing you've got to do is, and this is where I bring in my basic premise for Mama, RESPECT. And a lot of the college people who were responding, their response did not go a lot into the idea that you needed to have respect for the students. You had to have respect for the other teachers. You had to have respect for, you've got to have respect for people who have not been to college, because just because Case in point, just as I was retiring, I was going to fall back on my medical technology and do some work in the research lab because I had experience doing that. And it was something that I liked doing. And when you talk about the changes that have taken place, since I was in college, and now with the new way of doing things, and it's a different world. And basically, now I don't think people really have the real preparation that they need. And one of the things, just before I retired, we were getting into the idea that vocational education keeps America working. And there are some people who have not had a day of college. They were fortunate enough to have vocational technical education when they were in school. And when they graduated from high school, they graduated with skills that put them to work. Case in point, right here in Texas, I don't know exactly how it came about, but when General Motors came to Texas, it opened up an entire new world for the apprenticeships and people who were able to take the classes that were needed or do the work that was needed with some on-the-job training as they went along. And you really got an understanding that you ever sit back at parties when the people are all dressed up and they're sitting back, and a lot of people don't talk to each other at parties because a lot of people aren't very talkative. A lot of people listen, which is a real skill if you can listen. And a lot of times when they're listening, they might say maybe 3 or 4 words, if that much. But then they'll go home and talk to their children or their mates, or maybe the next day if they're employed, they will go and talk to their colleagues. But one of the things you get a chance to see now is that vocational education keeps America working. And all of the striking that took place between Ford, General Motors, I don't think Chrysler is still in business anymore, but one of the foreign companies. But all of these people who had these technical skills. They walked off the line, and they walked off because, if I'm not mistaken, it had been over 5 years since they had been given a raise. And when I look at now going to the market, I'm almost speechless when I think about going to the market, because I remember when I went to market at the times when you'd go and Wonder Bread, when it was a day, you'd go to the day old and get something for maybe I'd get 10 loaves of bread for $1, $2. Now, a loaf of bread is $1. A pound of hamburger. I don't even know, because I don't go to the market anymore. My granddaughters, my son, they go. These are the people, and I don't think that they have the aid for people who are less fortunate and who don't have the wherewithal to go and buy a loaf of bread for more than $1.50 for a loaf of bread. And I think there may be 20 slices of bread, and that includes the ends, maybe not 20. And some people don't eat the ends of bread, but now that happened. My mother was a genius. We couldn't afford to make bread pudding because we had eaten up all of the bread, the ends, the sides, the middles. And there was a family down the street. They had no children. So they would, if you can imagine people throwing bread away, and you see it all the time, but they would give us their ends of bread, and Mama would make bread pudding. And they're the little things that I sit back sometimes now, and I find myself wondering, what has happened to us as a society? What has happened to us that we see children going to school every day in the cold, hungry, sick sometimes, and we actually begrudge whatever the programs that there are. I don't understand, not as a teacher, but as a person, when I look back at how my mother did things. My mother, with all of the family that she had, my mother would never, ever let anybody in her neighborhood who was hungry or didn't have something, wouldn't share what she had with them, because that just was not nice. It wasn't kind. And if God really watches not just over you, but what you are doing. God's not happy sometimes. And I can remember, and I know I've told you this a million times, but Mama would say, we didn't have any money, but we were never poor. She defined it. We never went to bed hungry. We never went to bed cold. There was always somebody to say, everything's going to be all right. I remember the nuns. We had a group of nuns where I was in school. From Cincinnati, Wisconsin. They were Dominicans. And I think St. Dominic's bywords were, and it's what helps me to be in this chair and feel very blessed all the time. Give me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. I cannot get out of this chair without assistance. And give me the serenity or to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change those that I can. I do what I can do in the chair, and I can do quite a bit other than talk all the time. And give me the wisdom to know the difference between the two. And I realize that I have the good fortune that my mother defined us, my family. Because being rich to Mama did not mean having a lot of stuff under your bed. But basically, that's what wealth is, having a lot of stuff, having a lot of things. But I can't get out of this chair. I have MS. I'm in the progressive stages of MS, and it's getting worse. But I can take my dogs out. I can interact with my dogs. I can reflect on the things that the Dominicans used to tell us. And one of the, and I always knew that God made us all equal. And why? How do I know that? I had one of my nuns, Sister Dismas, and whatever Sister Dismas said, I believed, because Sister Dismas was kind, she was a good teacher, she didn't take any nonsense, but she was never mean. And most of the Dominicans there were like that. And while we're talking right now, if any of you feel like doing something really, really nice, everybody who is within earshot of my pod today, if you have $1, $2, $3, if it's just 50 cents, put it in an envelope and send it to the Cincinnati, Wisconsin Dominicans Retirement Fund. And I would love love to hear what kind of a response they got to that. And if not, the Dominicans maybe send something to Xavier University in New Orleans. And if not that, send something to the University of Oklahoma. Right here in Oklahoma. Because everybody needs something. Send something to the places that are preparing those baskets for the people to come and pick up food. And say, God, thank you for giving me another day. And the other thing is, thank God that we have people in our leadership roles who try hard to do the right thing, in spite of the fact that there are many people who work against them, who are supposed to be people working with them, who are supposed to be taking care of all Americans, because that's what the mandate was. And as I'm about to close, say thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you, and God bless